We will let Sarah presentation and she's going to take questions.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Thank you all for coming. For the Packers kickoff. My name is Oscar Sarah Polka. I have not been with the Waterford Police Department too long. I started 22. I was part-time until January of 23. I like to call myself your referendum officer. I'm retired from the city of Milwaukee after working 26 years in the city. I have my my husband and I ran a concrete business with employees. And we closed it down and.
You want to ride or find your baby?
I was asked by a few of the board members, as other officers were, to put a presentation together of where we could possibly save some costs.
Tells Mr. Porter's restaurant. I don't see her.
I don't know why I can't follow directions.
more volume.
Just tell everybody to mute.
Yeah, I did.
You're online mute.
No, it was a joke.
Oh.
Yeah, you're all set, yeah.
So I was asked, along with my coworkers, to kind of put our heads together and come up with something that would save some money for the department. And so we can keep the department and we can still be successful. The first thing I want to touch on is who your officers are. We're down to 5 full-time officers, and we have more than one part-time officer, but he is the main one that takes many shifts. As you can see, between the 6 of us, we have 139.5 years of service. All different departments. One has some military includes in there, but I think we're very experienced. I understand there's been some question about our training. I can explain that. The LESB, which is the Wisconsin department that decides whether or not we're licensed, they require so much training, and they require continued training and driving squads and shooting our guns and classroom. And with each year, have to have so much training accomplished in order to stay licensed. So this is kind of what we've come up with. An officer in charge that would oversee the town officers, the part-time officers, and the village officers, and the SRO. What you're missing there is the 2 lieutenants positions, one that was with the village, one that was with the town, and the chief's position. And it's also reducing 1 full-time officer position. And how that would look is, and I'm just speaking of the town, there's maybe 1 slide about the village and how the manpower goes over there, but I'm primarily speaking about the town and the officers. In order to make this work, this is one way. Would be the officer in charge would work full-time day shift, and then we'd have a part-time officer cover 3 days, where the officer in charge could have 2 off days and 1 administration day. And obviously vacations and stuff would have to be covered also with part-time officers. The second shift would be 2 shifts, 2 p.m. to 10 p.m., 7 days a week, and then on the weekends, 7 p.m. to 3 a.m. when they're busy and we have bar time. And then 2 officers would be assigned to cover those shifts. And obviously off days and vacations, if there's any openings, it would again be part-time officers. And then for our late shift, we have 1 full-time late shift officer with no backfill for vacation or off days. So on those nights, it would be the sheriff's department that would cover for that position, also to save a little bit of money. So with the reorganization I just showed, taking this, now this is wages, and benefits, taking that right off the top of our budget. This is the chief, and the only, he has since retired, I had to use 24, and same with the lieutenant, and then one police officer position. That's a reduction, as you can see, is just over $400,000 in wages and benefits. There was some discussion whether or not they wanted to do a late shift, so I broke it down two different ways. The 3 full-time officers and the 1 part-time officer would be no late shift. And then the 4 full officers and the 1 part-time officer would be with that late shift position I spoke about. And I included the, I believe in the back there, the sheriff's department proposal. That's only the wages. I didn't get into administrative fees or vehicle fees. That's just straight wages and benefits. This is the one slide about the village. This, some of you may not know, the village pays for their officer. They previously had 1 officer, 1 lieutenant, and then the school resource officer. We'd be replacing the lieutenant's position with another officer, because the officer in charge would be supervising both the village and the town. I think that budget saving items, number 1, the supervisors, previously the 2 lieutenants did work some overtime, filling in the spots for officers, maybe special duties or, you know, grades. Well, they obviously make higher wage, so their overtime's higher. So if you put an officer at those positions, it's a lower, you know, it's a lower overtime rate. Also, starting, I believe, this year, all the special events, the Lions, the parades, the church festivals, they're now responsible for paying for their own officers, paying for our wage, they have to pay the town. So that is another decrease in overtime fees, and wages. I don't have an exact number. I'm just trying to come up with some ideas how we can save money. Obviously, a reduction in budget items because you have less police officers, squad maintenance, police fuel, clothing allowance, education, and ammo. I have looked extensively into law enforcement grants. I was quite surprised how many were available out there. Everything from Axon for body cameras. They also do drones. Some of the the grants offered by Department of Justice and other agencies. Money for equipment, body cameras, pay for training, funding for additional personnel, for new hire costs, and solving community problems. I think we can definitely start utilizing this and get some additional money into the police department. Well, that's pretty much it. I try to be short and sweet. Questions?
Yeah, I know.
Officer in charge always the same person, or?
Yes.
If you have 2 officers in charge, 1 officer in charge for 2 officers, who receives 911 calls? Is there somebody in?
To be the officer that's on duty. Like I was just on duty half the day. I had the radio and the 911 call goes into the county dispatch, and then they tell us
Okay.
to go.
So
Many
that-
people think that we dispatch from here, which surprised me. We don't have a dispatch system here. It's Racine County Communications.
Yeah, on the first page where it talks about the 5 full-time, 1 part-time, are those officers seeing this and agree with it?
The ones that are here, we've all discussed this. Even the part-time officer I've spoken with,
Thank you.
and he's very interested in working 3 days a week.
Why don't you call the officer in charge the chief?
because that's expensive.
Hey.
The title is expensive in itself. You can have an officer in charge and they can make, I'm sorry?
Even smaller departments have a chief, because somebody has to set the tone to the department and handle discipline and things like that.
Well, I think that we just need to save the department and what the board decides, as long as we're successful, and we can show that we can do this and we're saving money, then I know that they had a posting out for a chief. I don't know where that process is. I'm not involved in that.
As a representative of the Grand Horn 582. As a representative of the Waterway District, and the majority of our residents in the town being residents on the waterway, I think maintaining our water safety and control, as well as the buoys that keep people safe is important. I understand that there isn't part of that in the sheriff's proposal, or that they would not be able to handle that. What we're gonna do with the boat, and will we continue to have the same or similar presence of patrolling as well as assistance for when our residents get stuck in areas that they didn't realize they'd get stuck in, or they break down and they're floating towards the dam. Will we still have, what sort of coverage will we have in that, with that respect, Officer Volk?
The exact same we've had in the past. This doesn't change water patrol at all. The budget numbers in one of the last pages has the same budget added in as previously. And also DNR reimburses at least 70% of all those costs as well. So that's how nothing should change there at all.
Yeah, so I assume that, this is a question for you and for the.
Hang on one second. If you have to speak, just raise your hand. We'll bring the mic over. That way everybody in the room can hear you, and also those online. Sorry for the interruption.
This is a question for both Officer Polka and the board. So I will assume that the board will still have a member that is a liaison to the police force in this option. And that liaison would work with the officer in charge for the management of the department and any disciplinary actions or things that need to take place, correct?
Correct.
So it's not going to be an undisciplined, unregulated staff.
I think with the new reorganization, it should seriously be like a weekly meeting, constant emails. If anything happens, they should know. Maybe like, I can't say a daily report because that would get kind of difficult, but they should know everything that's occurring here inside and outside the building. Unfortunately, I think that was a problem in the past, is maybe there wasn't an open communication, and I'm not saying anything here or who used to be in those offices. I just think that it should be an open, constant communication between whoever's in that room and the board.
Ed Olander, 4609 Riverside Road. Hello, Kathy. Following along with Grant's question relative to the river and so forth, it's a two-parter. Last time I spoke up, I thought that we needed more patrolling on the water, double what we have, and I think that's self-sustaining. And then the other half of that question is, we do an excellent job, our police officers, relative to water safety. What happens there? Because obviously we lost one of the instructors. So is that going to be a continuation, and who pays for that?
I believe the DNR pays for that, and we still have one of the instructors with us. I would think that would continue without issue. I don't see that. Unfortunately, if you saw less patrol this summer, we were really shorthanded, and a few of the officers that often work the boat had to work the road.
There's another one back here.
Out of the battle from 47 Straightforward Liberty Road. I've been 7 years. I love watching and retired detective for 30 years. So the question is, the new hires,
would it be reasonable to hire officers with experience to come here if they have years and years of training, multiple training? That Sheriff Boca has 26 and a half years of training.
We worked together in Milwaukee. I don't know if you heard him because his mic's kind of low.
Oh.
He was a detective and
So,
police
if
officer
you
in
hire-
Milwaukee for 30 years.
If you hire officers that are trained already, well, that's free training for us. All kinds of training, from psych to diversity, to speeding, to active shooter, so forth. So, money apparently, we are saving money here. That's the issue here, right? So why hire a new kid who's 22, 25 with no experience? It takes years and years of training to make that officer a good officer. So that's my idea. Just hire a officer that has experience, either retired or not, or lateral from a different department, come here full-time or part-time.
Like I said, I've not been here very long, but from what the other officers have told me, this department has never, or as far as I know, put anybody through the academy. So everybody that is here now, and since I've worked here, have all been already state licensed through other agencies, whether they're working part-time here, or this is their full-time agency.
Sarah, thank you for doing this. I know you're slammed. Part-time coverage. First shift, you have someone. Second shift, you have someone. Third shift, it's open. So if someone needs someone that comes from another municipality, correct?
Well,
The county,
if we have a late shift officer, that person will be here, their full-time job. The only time there's no coverage is if they have off days, and this is just an idea, the board can do whatever they want, if they want money-saving ideas, and this is what we came up with.
on the
So,
part-time, says there's no coverage until, see this says right here. Am I reading that properly?
that's not my presentation, I believe that's not my presentation, because this is something I think you put on Facebook. This is that one.
So we should shred this that we were given?
No.
Chairman, is this not accurate?
No, this is, so that is her information.
Oh,
The
that's-
PowerPoint is my information.
That's our information with the town treasurer
Okay.
and the police liaison.
I didn't know that was being handed out. All I put together is the PowerPoint. I apologize. I'm not familiar with that other document. You would ask the ladies up here. Yeah, the staple packets are from me.
There's a couple of different packets actually that are out.
I wasn't aware of that.
Can I hold this? This one is the one that Sarah is doing right now.
I apologize. I'm not familiar with that. Oh,
Yeah, we didn't know there was other
I'm sorry.
things.
Oh, my apologies.
Sarah, now, how much is it? What you're doing, the state and city, how much would that cost people?
Yeah, how much of a reduction
Yes.
in? It's up enough.
That's reduction, that's what we're saving, right?
Correct.
Okay, so what's the cost, your cost of full-time coverage then?
It is. Right there. So
500.
I gave two options.
Okay.
So I gave, and this is wages and benefits. There's also overhead costs, which is on another slide, which is in your hand, and I can go to that next. So this would be, and again, I was asked to give options. It's kind of like a buffet. I was trying to put different things available. So three full-time officers, I'm gonna guess that would be no late shift. That was one suggestion. And the other one would be 4 full-time officers, 1 part-time officer, and that would be the motto of the day shift officer, day shift part-time officer, 2 on the second or early second shift, and then 1 on late shift. So that would be the one on the right. And there is overhead, I mean, gotta keep the lights on. And that's why I said there's some reduction. Hold on. Was that page with the, all the numbers? I apologize.
So just so everyone's aware, the chart that's out there is comparing everything with all of the overhead costs for each comparison, not just wages. This chart has all of the overhead, everything. This is the complete total.
Okay, we're gonna let him finish and then he has a question. and I'll-
So it is in your packet. I don't know how it's not on the board, because I printed this and they made packets, so. The other expenses to keep Waterford Police Department in operation, it should be in your packet. Give me a minute, I can find the slide. I printed my PowerPoint and they made copies, so I'm not quite sure where that one went.
Josh, a question or a question for, Officer. Chairman, are the numbers up here, where's the source of these numbers come from?
On your, this slip of paper. that-
Sorry, this slip of
Yeah,
paper,
the chart.
where were the-
So
where were the
yes,
sources
this chart
on?
is what Liaison and I and the town treasurer. But these are the total costs, not just
Can't hear you
wages.
back here.
This is the total cost.
Okay, give me a second.
The 2025 budget. Yeah, for the 2025 budget.
That's included in their packet.
So this
also in your
chart that you
packet-
have is a total overhead cost of everything, the 2025 budget.
For the full-time as an option would
Right,
be,
but they're looking.
And then where do
Yeah,
those,
I know, I know.
where do those numbers come from?
This
From
one
Heather?
here is the one- Well, they come from the budget. They come from the treasurer.
So if they look at your packet.
These are the numbers that are in the budget. but
So if you look at the packet, this page in particular
Oh,
is from the 2025 budget, and those are the numbers that I used for the that, which was previously in here, because that's how I copied these.
Did you get your answer or no?
the sources, other than just the coverage.
Okay, so for her numbers, for Officer Focus, okay.
Okay, I found this slide. It was right before my thank you and Merry Christmas. I thought it was missing. So if you look on that page, it has it's the Excel page. So the squad, cost, boat patrol, and then clerk, office supplies, capital expenditures. No, don't restart now. Are on there. So what I did is directly from the budget paper. It's the actual cost, the projected for this year, and the budget for 25. I just, again, understand that was asked just to put this together and try to come up with some ideas. So there's the page with the other expenses that should be in your packet. And obviously, that's everything to keep us going for the budget. And some of those items were under my budget saving ideas. Obviously, need to keep the building together, so I don't know if we can maybe turn the lights out more often, don't run the heat, wear blankets. But there you go. Turn on the lights now, start saving. Also education, I think there's some savings there. I know that there's continued education for us at WCTC and MATC, and it's $25 a day. And we have to go 3 days a year. And then that leaves money for officers to go to specialty training, you know, accident investigation or something of that nature.
Great presentation, appreciate it very much. My address is 30719 Chapman Lane, down in the Waterford Woods. My name is David Kwasinski. Just asking everybody that showed up tonight, if you could show here in support of Waterford Police Department. I feel like a lot of residents showed up for that. I really think this is important for the board to see. I mean, I feel like, you know, a couple of years ago when there were some things going on with the fire EMS stuff on the south end of town, when town took it away from contracting with the village because of the incorporation efforts, response times increased significantly. So I believe now to date, actually, we reinstated the contract with the village for the fire services, which I'm glad you did, and thank you. So my concern is migrating to the county 100% full-time. And I'm not sure how long Waterford Police Department's been actually in operation, but I think
50 years, about 50 years.
50 years. Well, I think we should, for 50 at least, so that's my opinion, and appreciate the opportunity to learn about the town here and everything we got going on, so hope you consider and listen to the people we elected you folks to get up there and be the voice of the people. So thanks for everybody showing up.
Rick Renz, 28715 Golden Circle.
I think this one's. I think it's too far away. I think it's too far away. Hang on, I'm gonna have to use your outside voice.
I didn't really want to come up here.
Use your outside voice.
All right. First I want to preface, I'm the retired police chief of City of Muskego. I'm good to see you. I appreciate that you want to keep our police department here, but I do foresee a problem. The problem I foresee is the OIC, okay? Because you're going to want somebody who is in charge, who's going to do the hiring, who's going to set the mission, the vision, who's going to do the discipline, and you're going to have an officer in charge who's not getting paid cheap wages, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to have turnaround. You're going to have a guy that is not going to sit down because he's doing chief work for officer in charge.
Are you interested?
I'm retired.
I'm retired too. I'm still standing up here.
Okay, so I'm not saying I would not help, but so that's gonna be a problem with that position. If you were to create and call it a chief position and pay them more and have them in charge, then you're gonna hang on to that position, and you want the person who's gonna set the professionalism for the department. Okay, and I'm sure Ryan can attest to this, that if you have a police department that's having all kinds of internal problems, the recommended thing is you hire a chief from outside the department. You are not going to get an officer in charge from another department to come in here and fix things up. So that is my only concern with this. I appreciate the money saving business, but
Understand, I was just asked to give ideas. I'm definitely.
I am not.
And I talked with my coworkers, and this is how we kind of
Yep.
came up with it.
Yep.
We gotta start someplace.
Yep.
I think that with the board and whoever's in charge working hand in hand. You know, I don't know, once the initial application stuff are gone through, they should be, you know, the ones saying yes or no.
I agree. And the only thing I agree with everything you did there. The only thing I would do is I would up the pay. There'd be a little bit more cost, but I would put in a chief position. And then from that, you could work off of this. And now I'm done.
Sarah, your final number is 1.361, correct? Down here, right here?
Oh, that's not mine. That's actually,
That's what it costs for a full-time department as it was before all this started happening.
Okay, so what is the sheriff's number?
622, 367.
Okay, between 1.31 and 622. Where is that cost savings? Because of the overhead of the building, the heat, and what is, how are you saving all that money to go with the county?
We can hear you, but we don't understand it.
1.361, okay, and 622. Where is the savings? How are we coming up with all the savings between the two numbers? Is it because of liability or what? How are you
That's
saving
just-
that amount of money?
That's just the cost of the sheriff's contract
Okay,
for 24/7 coverage. That's just their cost.
okay.
4827 Riverside Road, I don't think I gave that before. I got so many questions. I don't know where to start.
Okay, put the mic closer to you.
Where is a copy of the Racine County Sheriff's Department quote that we can see?
Right on the back table.
And I included it with my
It's a
PowerPoint,
full quote?
Yeah, right on the
That's
back
the first
table.
time I'm
and
gonna
I
be seeing
included
that.
that so they could have it in their hand too.
The numbers for the option one, the 1.361, that is in the past, right? Incurring a lot of that cost right
That's
now.
for full-time department.
As was.
It's
comparing
what it
everything.
was for a full-time department, doesn't mean that it
Right, but we're
what
putting
it should
everything
be
out there.
or could be for,
If people want a
right? Because all
full-time
five of
department.
you could and should look at those numbers and say, what can we do to reduce those? So that you could come up with a more realistic number, because you've operated without a lot of that expense for some time now. And without jeopardizing the coverage of third shift, like what was brought up, because Racine County has a mandated by statute to cover that. And aren't there shifts and hours that have been uncovered the past years, the past months, that the Racine Sheriff had to cover?
Oh, this is mandated to cover, but they will have, they're not a dedicated car.
I didn't say they were
They will have an
dedicated,
area
Chairman.
car.
Please don't
So
put
it
words in my
may be
mouth.
40 minutes till they get here. There's a difference in coverage.
All right. The other thing, I just want to say that there've been some posts on social media
You have to bring the mic up.
that puts a lot of information out there for the Racine County option. But I don't see the same thing for the other options.
Everything is on here.
Everything's on there, but as we've already said, there's some of it we shouldn't pay attention to. It's not like the posts that have been put out there, the information, the paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs, the Racine County. Where's the same information? It comes off, Chairman, as looking very biased. Then you raise points that allude to inciting fear because we won't have the same protection. Those are your words about the protection, not mine.
Hey, I'm just
And-
going by facts. If we go down to a part-time department, we're not gonna have as much protection. That's a fact.
And then you,
More people than you've ever had
And-
around here.
and then
One
you-
person speaking at a time. So we
then
can
you've
hear.
raised the question in your post about improper connections that you heard somebody say improper connections. All of this raises bias in my mind when I read your post. And as elected to represent the citizens, the constituents of this town, I expect each and every one of you to look at all the options and come up with the best solution.
So
Make the best.
we
May I
have looked at all
finish,
the
please?
options.
Do
We
you
have
want the
looked at all
mic?
the options. They're all
Do you
right
want the
here.
mic?
If I have an idea of what I believe is better, that's my opinion. If you have
That's
an idea of
your
what you
opinion.
believe is better, that's your opinion.
Yeah, and all I'm trying to tell you is, I can't say the town of Waterford did not elect you for your opinion. They elected you to represent the town. That's what elected officials are elected for, to represent the constituents. So let's get the emotional. Let's listen to the
We're
constituents.
looking at a savings of half
No, we're not.
Yes,
No,
we
we're
are.
not. Take those numbers. Get me elected on the board. I'll come show you how to balance a budget, come up with some numbers that work. You don't have to spend 1.361. You're not doing it now.
To make
I
decisions
have
for the
to- I
better
have
of the
to
town of
stop. Thank you.
Waterford. So obviously we have opinions when we
listened to
read what the facts are. That's our job. A full-time department is 1.3 million. A part-time department would be 701,000. The sheriff would be 622 for 24/7 backfilled coverage. Those are the facts.
They're not facts. That's what it was. It doesn't have to be.
So you don't want a full-time police department.
I could come up with numbers, Chairman, for a full-time police department that are less than the numbers you're telling me are facts.
But what would you take out of there?
What you've already taken out, a chief and 2 lieutenants. You can still come up with an option.
Taking out the chief and 2 lieutenants is still more expensive than going with 24/7 full-time coverage with the sheriff's department.
So the
You
question
get 24/7 anyway.
No, but it's not.
Yes, you do. It's state mandated.
May I finish now? It is not the same 24/7
Why'd you
coverage
get to
as
finish? I
having,
couldn't.
as having a sheriff's deputy who's on another call in another jurisdiction that may have a half hour before he finishes that call before driving 40 minutes to get here. So while you may have that coverage, it's not quick coverage, it's not dedicated to the town.
You have the numbers to substantiate that they can't get here quicker? Have they proven that?
Sir,
They've been doing it?
sir, our third shift officer has been called off of the town of Waterford to go help Norway because they rely on the sheriff's area car to get there. So our town of Waterford officer has been called off of
I'm
our
understanding,
streets
Chairman.
to go to
That's
Norway to
not my
help them
point,
until the
but I'm
sheriff
glad
can
to
get
have your
there.
input. My question is, do we actually have demonstrated call records that show that it takes that long? Is that theoretical?
It's theoretical because why
it's
would we have those
theoretical.
numbers? Because we have a dedicated.
What's the
officer.
probability?
May I finish? Thank you.
Again, why can you finish?
I
can't?
let you
Sorry,
finish.
You need to sit down.
So if you have a question, I'm happy to answer it, but I have to be afforded the opportunity to provide that answer. Otherwise, what's the point of being here? We don't have that number because we haven't needed that number because we have had a dedicated town officer who was able to respond. What the chair was trying to point out was that Norway does not. And so while the sheriff's area car was on another call, our town of Waterford police officer has had to go cover a call in Norway because that area deputy was on a call someplace else. So there's your empirical data that a sheriff's deputy may not be available to respond when we need them if we rely on the car.
And that's routine across all kinds of towns and counties.
But it
all over the
answers your
state.
question.
I'm Dan Egan, 32610 Sunburst Court. I just have numbers, I'm sorry, I just have a numbers question. I'm going off of what this gentleman in front of me had said. I'm looking at, I think it's the last page on the presentation. Officer.
That is the sheriff's department proposal.
I understand that in the sheriff's department proposal, it's on it, and I'm looking at the top of the page, appendix B, and it talks about wages. And if you add the wages per month are $6,300. Unless I'm reading this wrong, and the total wages then for a year of the contract would be 77,000, then you add the benefits and you're 114,000 for the year. Is that right? Is that what I'm understanding? Is the sheriff's proposal?
Which one are you looking at, sir?
He's doing. Look at this one.
what he's calculating.
Yeah, so what they're saying is a year is 622 and a month, so total administrative.
The reason I was asking that is I'm looking at that as 114,000, and then going back to what the officer, Officer
Hold on, Dan.
Later.
Yeah, I can, we can, but put the lights off, I guess, because it's saving energy.
That's the monthly cost for. Right, but that's the monthly cost for the whole, not just.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, but my question again was just, am I correct in looking at wages and benefits on the county's proposal of 114,000 and then comparing them to Officer Polka's, which was, my recollection, was 543,000. So you're talking about 20% the cost for the manpower. And I'm just saying that, I'm not asking it that, is that good or bad? I'm just asking, is that right? Is that correct?
That's per employee, not for the whole staff.
But
Down on the bottom is the 622 number is for 4.76 deputies per contract.
But the entire budget, or the entire police proposal was around 600, or not police, sheriff's proposal was 600. So that all it is wages.
Well, so, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I have no authority to speak on anything.
Well, I'm just,
The way I read this is, yes, you know, the
Sounds-
town of Waterford is going to spend $622,000 for the entirety and receive 4.76 deputies for the year. And the hourly wages are not actual hourly wages. That's including the cost of the squad cars and the ammo and the clothing and all that. Is that correct?
I was just, my question is just, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I'm looking at wages
Okay, so
compared to wages.
yeah, he's saying, right now you have 132,000 for a police officer in 2025 on your proposal. Now, on the Racine County Sheriff's proposal, it's 114,000 per deputy
So we are,
over,
we are more expensive by.
correct?
But I'm,
Plus
They're
you still,
114.
plus you still have to have the other costs.
that's.
Yeah, we got.
Correct. Correct.
That's what I was thinking.
So that's what they were trying to figure out, is where those two numbers are coming from and how you can, how to compare the two.
Yeah, so in other words, there's considerably more costs other than wages,
Yes.
understandably so. In the WPD in comparison to the sheriff's department. Thank you.
Okay, yes.
Yes, it's been my experience with contracting with the sheriff's department that they will give you what you want, 1 or 2 deputies. You have to realize that that deputy quite often will get pulled out of your community because go to another community to assist in a mutual aid situation, but especially if we have a higher populated east side of the county. Okay, that's not a secret. So that does happen. So that's something that you want to consider. Now, I am not here to argue for the police department. Sorry, I'm not here to argue for the sheriff's department. I just want to present facts so that everybody knows what and how this setup works. Okay, it is more expensive for municipal police than it is for the county. We have to decide what do we want for services is what it boils down to, and if we're going to pay for it.
And
Andrew Hamlin, 5420 Beacon Road. Officer Bolton, how many officers would be on shift per day for your first presentation?
During the day, it'd most likely be 1 unless the officer in charge is doing administrative duty, then there would be 1 out on the street. But I think the officer in charge would obviously respond if something was going on to assist. And the second shift, there'd be 2, but they have off days and vacations, but there would be 2 on certain days. And then if it was busy or there was an event, part-time officers would also fill the gap.
Now, is it the same for Shea County? 1, 2, 1?
Terry, how many officers would we have with Racine County? Per shift?
1.
One?
They're all backfilled, yes.
Okay.
So it's not apples to apples comparison?
Sorry,
It's not an apples to apples comparison then?
I think the sheriff's department and having your own department isn't apples to apples. I mean,
Okay, Kevin. Okay.
your steps in. Yeah, that's for sure.
Hello, my name's Barb Strong. I'm from 7628 Chestnut Lane. And just to recap, we're in this mess because of some employment problem or employee problems, violation of standards, correct? So a lot of our overage on the budget is because of overtime. Is that correct? Are you comparing last year's budget and this year's budget? No?
I guess they don't understand, you speak of.
So she's asking about your overtime. Are you over budget because of the situations with the previous officers putting you with excess overtime?
No, that's not, no.
I know that's not it, but you keep talking about cost savings. And is the determination of whether to keep our department or go with the Racine County Sheriff's based solely on cost savings?
No.
Or is it based on what the best thing for the town is?
It wouldn't be based solely on cost savings. It would be based also on 24/7 backfilled coverage, okay? So say the dedicated deputy is sick or on vacation, they would always backfill with somebody. We would never have a gap in service. They also have other things as far as, body cams. There's also things coming down the pike, like dispatch fees, radio fees,
Right,
all
right,
that
I
kind of stuff.
understand that.
Another huge component that we have to think about is liability. When we contract with the sheriff's department, the liability is theirs, not ours. When we contract with someone else, all the HR, the villages, you understand, all the issues that we had here, we dealt with it. They contracted with us. We dealt with all the issues, right? We have the attorney's fees, we have the investigations, we have all the work that Tina and Heather had to do, all the papers piled up. That was all here. All that stuff would be the sheriff's department. They deal with the HR, they deal with payroll, they deal with all that stuff.
That may be, but my question is, there is no consideration to rebuild our department for our town? Because it sounds to me like the board's made a decision and you're just going through the motions to let us talk.
And this is something that people can decide for themselves. That's why we hold these meetings. Previous chairman probably wouldn't even hold these meetings. I hold these meetings for everyone to get information. You guys can decide, but we want to make sure that you have the facts and all the information.
Hi, my name is Karen Ammerman, 28735 Golden Circle. I'm kind of coming in on this late, so I'm somewhat confused, but what you're telling us is the savings with the sheriff. There'd only be one officer on duty, but with our own police, there would be more people on second shift. So how are you able to compare when you're not comparing the same numbers? And isn't that concerning to you as board members that it could possibly be a 40-minute wait before we have protection if one of our officers, whether it be with the sheriff's department, is on a different call? That's very concerning as a member of the community to think that I have to wait 40 minutes to have my problem be attended to. And I think that this really needs to be looked at and given more time to come up with solutions that would benefit our community and not just jump ship because you don't want the liability or the work to go into making it a better situation for everybody involved.
So I agree that waiting 40 minutes for a call is a problem, which is why some of us are advocating for round-the-clock 24/7 coverage with a dedicated deputy or officer
in the town. The only time that the area card would be an issue is if you had a part-time, police force and didn't have a police officer on duty, which is, in this presentation, would be a third shift would go unfilled, either all the time or when the officer was on, am I misspeaking?
Correct. If there was a day off, correct, Officer Polka?
Now, this is just an idea or an example. It's up to the board if they would take that third shift spot and backfill his off days and vacation with a part-timer. But
Well, from what,
again, these are just ideas. It would be up to them how they fill the spots. But the one with the 4 officers, part-time officer, that idea is with the late shift officer with no backfill. Because then we'd have to add another part-time person down there. And I just put 1 part-time person for the day shift spots.
well, with whatever solution is gone with, I think it's, not acceptable that we don't have somebody on shift 24/7, in our community, whichever solution is gone to, and from just reading these numbers, the police department's option is having 2 people on second shift, whereas the sheriff is not. So that's the part I'm confused on. And again, like, third shift is usually, I would think, when a lot of stuff happens, so there should definitely be somebody on duty 24/7.
Some of the busiest time is around bar close, and that was covered on weekends until 3 AM by my little idea of having 1 early shift and then 1 that kind of works at swing shift. I mean, again, it's just an idea of how to cover, but
So up until about a year ago, before the referendum to add the additional officer, the town of Waterford had 1 officer patrolling the town per shift, which is what the sheriff's contract also covers. We had the referendum that added the additional officer to second shift, and then all of this happened, and we haven't really been able to see that fulfilled. If you take those 3 full-time officers that were in this presentation, and you have 1 cover each shift, it would be the same price, but you would then have 1 town of Waterford police officer covering each shift, just as the sheriff's proposal has. But it would cost the town $85,000 more per year, based on the numbers. If you add up the cost of labor from Officer Polka's slide, along with the overhead costs, it comes out to about $706,000, which is roughly the same as the chart that was provided at the back of the room.
So would there be coverage, you're saying with the sheriff 24/7, but where is this idea that it would be a 40-minute wait?
That would be if we did not have a dedicated officer on third shift. So for example, if we went with the 3 officers from the presentation, 1 working first shift and 2 working second shift, with no third shift dedicated town of Waterford Police Department officer on duty, we would then be relying on the sheriff's area car, which patrols the entire western portion of Racine County.
Which is what you have now.
But we also have a police officer on.
Correct.
Whereas if we contract with the sheriff's department, we still have both a dedicated sheriff's deputy assigned to the town of Waterford and that area car. So we would have on third shift what we have today.
Could have a super bowl as well.
He was next right here. He's in right here.
There, Graham, 6216 North River Road. A quick question about the overhead costs that kind of glossed over a little bit. So is there an assumption that the overhead completely goes away if we bring in Racine County?
No.
Correct. Because the building's still here, and the county's gonna pay for the building and all that other stuff, it'll just be used for something else, I'm sorry. So how much of that overhead would still occur if Racine County is brought in? That would need to be added to the Racine County's quote in comparison.
like the building costs and stuff. Can I say something while they're looking at that? Even when we're by ourselves, if we're going to a high-risk call, we have to wait for the sheriff's department. I don't think I've ever waited 40 minutes, thank goodness, when I'm going in because somebody's down or somebody's fighting. They do their job very well and they will get here for us. And I don't like looking at any other officer or looking down on anybody. They do the best they can, and if they're someplace saving a life, it's just the way it is. We have to make that decision if we can go in safely or if we need to wait.
Thank you. It would be roughly, just a quick look at it, about 53,000 in the total overhead would continue based on electricity, some building maintenance and, clerk costs. And the intent is not to diminish anybody's service, but the fact is, if a deputy's on a call, he's on a call. If he gets a higher priority one, you know, if say he's got a traffic stop, but there's an active crime taking place, I'm sure he would leave that traffic stop to help. But if you're, you know, having some issue in your home and he's on the other end of the service area, it is gonna take some time for him to get to you.
Ed Olander, 46 on the Riverside Road. I think, this is, I'm gonna address the board members right now. I think that every time I've come up here, which has been a lot of times in the last 7 months, I think you all get the notion that I'm dedicated to the safety of this community. Would you agree? All right. I've lived out here, it'll be 26 years in February. I frequented the area 10 years before that. I've lived in a lot of places during my 69 trips around the sun. The 10 years I've been out here, I said that when I retire, I'm moving out to Waterford. And at that time, I didn't know there was a town of Waterford, or because we're pretty much joined at the hips. We'd be the same air, share the same streets, etc. Probably share more activity, family community activity in the village than anywhere else. Now, a long time ago, we did have the Racine County Sheriffs patrolling or providing law enforcement. And I can tell you this from my experience, they were nightmares. I live in the Waterford Woods, it's one of the highest densities. It's a POA, not a HOA. So there's a lot of residents in there. And there was always horror stories. So, on May of this year, I asked the board, is this your attempt to get rid of the Waterford Police Department? And nobody up there said yes or no. Over the 7 months, I'm convinced that you guys are, and for all the wrong reasons. I see safety getting worse. You're gonna lose the ability to vet officers in the town of Waterford if you go with the sheriff's department. They will decide who's gonna come out here. And it ain't gonna be these people, I'll guarantee it ain't gonna be the people that live within 10, 20 miles or whatever, deputies. Now, relative to vetting, you'll have no control. You can call them all you want. You'll have no control. And when I looked up the sheriff's deputy, and I try to do my homework on a lot of things. And at the last meeting, I brought up how I looked up the TV station that was being dissed by Sheriff Schmaling a couple times. And I looked that up, because he kept pointing, oh, we only hear bad news, oh, we only hear bad news. And I'm like, geez, I follow those guys, and I looked it up. Yeah, there's a lot of human interest stories, whatever, that local TV stations in Milwaukee put on with the Racine County Sheriff's Department. And as I was surfing, all of a sudden I see all these faces in uniforms in blaze orange. These are deputies that were charged with crimes. And the last one, Pike or something to that effect, well, he's in prison. Child molestation, child pornography, exposure, et cetera, and some tells me he wasn't acting alone, but he got busted. But then there was a lieutenant for the Racine Sheriff's Department, drunken driving, et cetera. Now, they're a big organization, and I'll grant that. Any big company is gonna have, it's as simple as that. My dad said the bigger the house, the more places to hide, and he was right. So relative to the safety aspect, and I know everybody's talking a lot of numbers, but you know, the analogy I gave a while ago, when I buy tires for the family car, I don't buy the cheapest tires. I prefer Michelin, it's the safest as far as I'm concerned. I don't care what I spend. It's safety. The board has to provide for the residents. They have to check out for the safety, health, and welfare of this community. I don't see that happening. Well, what that happens on the police force, okay, you dealt with it, whatever, doesn't mean that we can't go back and rebuild. But I want a local police force, and I told you guys that 7 months ago, I said, if I hear that you're leaning towards the sheriffs, I will vehemently oppose that. And all the 7 months that I've been listening very closely to this, I'm even more vehemently opposed. So give us security, rebuild our police department. If it costs us a little more, you won't hear me complaining. Safety to me is number one. I want to know who my local enforcement is. I want to know them by their first name. I want their cell phone number, so when I see something, I can call them up. I live on the water. I see infractions on the waterway, or I see a rock buoy that lost its mooring. I call up at that time. Patrol gentleman was Mr. Nelson. Boom, consider it done. I know I'm not gonna get that with the sheriffs. Now, don't get me wrong. I support law enforcement. I got a Cecil up in South Central Wisconsin. I pay with my taxes up there for sheriffs and police. And in 50 years, I've never, ever, ever, when there were burglaries or bad actors, let's just say, I never called the police department. It was always the sheriffs. Why? They just had more boots because they covered the whole county. It's as simple as that. So before Sheriff Spanling pins a tail on me, I just want to let them know I understand how that works. But I'm all for local law enforcement. Quit spending my tax dollars for lawyers. Sorry, Ryan. Because up until 2020, when you made one big bad decision and several following, I calculated we spent $500,000 flushed down the toilet or to lawyers. Lawyers today, and Heather, if you want to chime in, whatever, I'm guessing we're about $500,000 since 2020. Now, the lawyers are gonna have a very, very Merry Christmas. And it doesn't sound like you're done. It sounds like we're gonna get extorted by some of the complainants. So that's gonna grow. And barring any lawsuits that I feel are coming. So you better think about this liability thing. You better stop weaponizing yourselves. I'm not talking to all the board members. You know I'm addressing this too. Because it got to the point now where I feel that the investigators or the people on the board that are requesting investigators need to be investigated. Because what I see is collusion, I see weaponization, and I see violation on that board. And again, safety is number one as far as I'm concerned, and I think nobody would disagree with that. Thank you.
Every single person on this board has voted for the investigations because we had complaints from the PD itself that warranted investigations. If we had not done that, we would have been corrupt. If we would have not done that, we would have been liable. We did what we needed to do. You can agree or disagree. Complainants came to the board. Every single person up here voted to have those investigated because that was the right thing to do. You talk about your issues with the Sheriff's Department 40 years ago. That was 40 years ago. We do have the Sheriff's Department that still come and help us out and back us up with anything major that happens. Have you had a problem with them for that?
So leave it the
All
same.
we're trying to do, right now, the PD is down to a fragment of what it used to be. Because of warranted investigations and because of behavior that was in the past not overseen. And you talk about having somebody, a police liaison to oversee things, that was part of the issue. We found out the hard way that that was part of the issue. Things weren't being overseen. There were things that would make your head spin that I wish I would have never read when I read the transcripts. And someday, hopefully, when they get their injunctions off of them, so you can actually read them, you will understand.
Can I respond to that?
Or B.
Okay, she's responding to me. Can I respond? So I've only heard that speech you just gave about 20 times. Okay, liability, warranted. In the private sector, if you have a bad actor, let's just pick any one of the police officers that retired, resigned, whatever you wanna call it. You call them on the rug, you spank you slap their wrists, maybe put a black mark on their personnel file. This board, a couple of you, is run and get a lawyer right away. And look at the last issue on this boundary agreement. You formed the committee, they spent over a year, and then you fought them on it, and you had to get a lawyer. And then you call them liars. That's not the way to run a town.
You manage first,
Anytime
litigate
a
last.
municipality makes a 50-year agreement, they should have an attorney look it over.
Here, you know what's gonna put all that
Hey,
away?
Eddie,
And
please
I've
let
said
other
this a
people
couple
talk,
times
please.
now.
Please let other
We
people
need the city of
talk.
Waterford to get rid of all of this bullshit, because we wouldn't have turf wars, we'd get along even better with the village. So you board members better start thinking ahead for the future.
I'd like to ask anyone in this room if they don't want us to have an attorney look over a 50-year boundary agreement that would affect them. Sir, you're next.
Actually, that's not on the agenda, so we can't talk
Right.
about that.
We're not in a meeting.
We're not even in a meeting.
No, we're taking, this is Sarah's presentation.
Nick Grabowski, 4813 Riverside Road. I guess I had a question, but, first off, I guess the way I look at it is Officer Polka is up here trying to come up with something. This isn't concrete. She's basically saying, hey, this is what we're trying to do to work with. And first off, if we go away from this atmosphere, this kind of relationship, you are not gonna get that from the county. So if you go to a county, you're never getting this back. They're gonna care one iota what this part of Racine County is doing. So just the fact that they're willing to try to work with us and figure out some solutions, that's not just today to save them for us, but it's also for the future, where a year from now, if we have other concerns, I'm guessing that they're gonna be willing to step up and go, hey, let's talk about it and let's figure out a reasonable solution. That's my first part about that. I think what people are missing with this whole county aspect, for one, sometimes things get asked out here, and things get presented, but then when they start getting talked about, there's conflicting things where we're talking about the no officer on third shift. Well, that was one package up there, okay? There was a different package that did include the officer for a third shift. So yes, it was a little bit more money, but that was still on there. It's just that when it was referred to secondhand, it was like, we're not gonna get anybody for third shift. No, that was option A, to save a little bit more money, but option B was, yes, we wanna make sure everybody's covered all the time, okay?
And the board can decide on an option C and add part-time coverage for the late shift officer on off days and vacation, but
Correct.
that's this one.
And I guess my point to this is that we can figure out some of those details. Everyone I'm talking to, out in the community, nobody wants to lose our police department, okay? The personal effect that they have on our community, I can't tell you enough times that I run into them at different events, and you know them by name, you see them in your neighborhood, you wave. I got phone calls at 12:30 at night on a Tuesday, and this is only a year after I moved here, from the police department, and I'm freaking out thinking one of my kids did something. And you know what it was? It was them calling me to say, look, my garage door was left open. And hey, close your garage door, sorry for bothering you this way at night, but hey, we don't want you to have this open for burglars or anybody else. That was one of the coolest things I've ever seen from the police department in my community that I can remember. So to end on this, at least, you know, I could talk to you forever, but I guess my question to the board is, there's McDonald's, and then there's one of our fine establishments out here that we might go to for a burger, okay? That's your choice as a family on where you want to go for a burger. I guess my question is this going to be put up for a vote so that we can actually decide this, or are you making us go to McDonald's?
I don't know what anybody else, but I would like to put it up for a vote after we have discussions and everyone has all of the facts. Because I know that this room is a lot of one opinion tonight, but I've been hearing from other people through emails and phone calls and coming in, other people feeling the other way. So I think that it's something that people should vote on themselves. I just want to make one remark when you talk about, we're not going to get, extra help or whatever from the sheriff. You do realize that we've been paying for one lieutenant to be here all this time to stabilize the PD, when in fact, we've had about
3 or 4 of them helping with all this that we've had to deal with, that we have not been charged for, okay? And another fact is that we have at least 10 sheriff deputies that live in the town of Waterford. Their kids go to school with my kid at the high school. We do know them. They go to church with us. Their kids go to school with us. They're not nameless, faceless people who don't care about the community. They live here. I don't think we have any officers who live here. So just so you understand that.
Okay, let me stand up.
Hello, hey, I'm sorry, 2 more questions because we have 2 other meetings as well.
Tamara Paulo, 630 Vermont Parkway, village trustee, contract with the Waterford Police Department. From what I'm hearing from everything I've heard tonight, you're considering either county or keeping the department, correct? Just those 2 options?
I'm sorry.
Just those 2 options?
Well, that's what this chart is, there's 3. So keeping the PD as a full-time PD like we've always had, making the PD a part-time PD to make it more affordable, or the sheriff's department, they're all in the chart.
What about a third option, what the village does? We contract with you for first and second shift, and we contract with the Racine County for third. Is that something that's been considered?
We have talked, Bob and I have met with Zeke and Don a couple of times, and that's something that we would need to work out. But at this point right now, it's very difficult to keep that up because our officers are working way too many hours, and we talked to them about that already.
Well, we're
And
still doing it, and
they're
we'll keep
still
on
here.
doing it.
We've got somebody working 16-hour shifts, day after day after day after day. Something's gonna happen. That's gonna create some kind of liability issues. We can't keep doing that.
Well, if you're reducing 1 shift for them, we need to see also a budget item for that.
Thank you. Can I just throw some out as a village trustee? How about you ditch the sheriff department on 3rd shift and we share an officer and we split the cost?
Troy McReynolds, I'm also a village trustee. I've attended all of these meetings and listened to both options that has been presented, and I can't speak for every village trustee, but I think that there would be potentially a third option. Trustee Nash, who was here earlier, had to leave. Him and I, in the village, took the time and I went to 55 houses, knocked on the doors, talked to people about policing. Every person that I talked to was pro Waterford PD. I don't feel good for you guys because you guys have a very, very difficult decision to make. Arguments can be made for both options. Granted, the sheriff's department has very, very deep resources. They have the human resources, which Terry talked about. However, the local policing that we have currently in Waterford, gentleman talked about knowing the officers by first name. Getting a phone call at 12:30 at night that your garage door is open. Those are things that are pretty cool for a small community. And the town and the village, I think there's a third option. And again, I cannot talk for every trustee here. However, what if we look at building a Waterford PD operated by both village and the town? Right now, I believe in our 2025 budget, we have $580,000 allocated for policing. If both boards were to throw $580,000, and we could probably reduce it at that point, and come up with a Waterford PD that is operated by both village and town. I think that would be a third option that the community could really, really get behind. We could keep our community policing feel, which we all want. And again, I'm pro sheriff department. My father was the sheriff for several years in Racine County. However, being in a smaller community on the west end of Racine County, having your own municipal police department is a great thing. And I'll leave it at that. My name's Adam Jassy. I'm also village trustee. I'll talk quick so we can get all the trustees out of your hair. I will speak on behalf of all the trustees because I've spoken with all of them and they want to support our local police department. They all. And I think trustee McReynolds hit it on the head that we need to start having conversations as two boards. And that doesn't just mean with President Houston or Zeke Jackson. That means you can reach out to the other board members and talk about these things with us at any time. We've expressed interest to work with you guys on a variety of things. And typically, the doors are pretty much closed here when it comes to working together in collaboration. And I think most people in this room will feel that way. So one of the other things I just want to say is this village board is done with the bullshit of the history of the past of this community fighting and arguing. It is time that the people that are sitting in those seats, the people that are village trustees, to actually be leaders. So I am willing to work with anybody that is elected to any seat in these municipalities, in this county, in this state, in this country, on behalf of all the taxpayers. That's what this is about, listening to them. It does not take an intelligent, overly aware person to see what these people want. You represent them. So let's actually work for us and work. And I truly feel the only time an elected official should raise their voice and tell people to be quiet at any point is not in the authority up there in that chair. You don't talk to these people that way and tell them to sit down.
You work for us.
We try.
I do actually have a couple questions. First one would be, back on September 30th of this year, we had a meeting and a motion to get data from Racine County from 1/21 to the present on data for calls. What happened with that? Have we requested and asked why we haven't gotten it yet? I can gladly, if you give me permission, I will. The other thing, ma'am, I am talking right now. I will give you the floor when I'm done. The other question I have is, we have a budget or a quote from Racine County Sheriff. If I read the contract right, maybe you could tell me if I'm wrong. If we eliminate our department, we have to give a year severance pay. I was asking for you as a liaison.
You have to read the contract, Doug. It's very clear what it says.
Okay, well, if we do, I kept being brought up, well, town of Burlington did away with their department and just kept the water patrol, and that was not an issue. Well, if you check with the town of Burlington, when they went to Racine County, they kept a full-time officer on until he retired. So it wasn't just the water patrol they kept, they also kept a full-time officer in their office. Thank you.
Any more questions for anyone? Because we have 2 more meetings to go to again. We have like 2 more questions because we do have 2 more meetings. We have an attorney waiting.
Okay, so I can take 2 more questions. Who has not had an opportunity to speak?
So, first of all, I'd like to acknowledge that being a board member in this community or any community is a volunteer effort. Most of you, is it 8,000 or whatever you get paid? There's not a lot for the amount of time you put in there, at least relative to what you could make on a day job. So I acknowledge that you have a difficult job. My wife has been asking me to join this board for 8 years. And I have no desire to do that because I see the crap that you have to deal with on a monthly basis. But I think even though the sheriff's option is the easiest option this board can make. I mean, from a decision and not having to do work yourselves and managing them, that's the easiest option. It's not the best. And unlike Ed, who, I don't know where Ed went, but Ed said he wants to spend more, or he'll pay more. We still have an option that's significantly less than the 1.13 million by reducing it. And we still have that on-call sheriff to back us up in that case. And I really wish we would find somewhere in a happy medium between what Sarah is doing and our old way of doing things, our old way with 2 lieutenants and 1 chief. Certainly, if we're proposing not having any of those 3 positions, perhaps we just have 1 chief or just 1 lieutenant. And the gentleman from Muskego made it clear that we need, that person needs to be paid well in order to do that, or they'll eventually leave. So just rather than taking that easiest option, which is going with the sheriff's department, please spend more time to make it work for local police department.
Any more questions? Anyone have a question?
I just,
I'm
you
right
know,
there, hang on.
I'll get you before you get here.
Speak up.
Somebody asked for a show of hands before who was in favor of the PD to remain. I would like to know how many people, show of hands, are from the village? Or no, let me change it. Please, how many people are here from the town? What is that? All right.
Majority.
The other thing that I heard before, just clarification, young lady over on the other side talking about the 40-minute response time. I believe there might still be some confusion as to what there is with the area car and the county coverage versus the additional coverage that you would be purchasing through contract if that so be with the county.
Right. So a dedicated deputy would be somebody who would be working here all the time, just like the police officers do. They would be here. And relying on an area car is whatever car happens to be, they may be in Dover, they may be, 20 minutes away, they may be 30 minutes away, but they may be 20 minutes away. They may be on another call. You would be waiting, just like when I spoke to Officer Leach the other day, and he told me that he's got to go into the town of Norway numerous times because the sheriff was called away on another call. That area call couldn't make it, and Troy, you probably understand that he had to leave us and go and help them because they couldn't wait for the sheriff car to get there. Not that the sheriff's not doing a great job, but when they're not a dedicated deputy, they're not going to be here waiting like they would if they were dedicated.
That's
Yeah.
First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for coming tonight. One question that didn't get asked, we were asked how many people here support our local department? How many people here would be in favor of the sheriff's department taking over?
You're talking about a one-year contract right now?
Well, it would be, whatever the year would be, just 3 to 5. Who wants the sheriff's department? Just
Well, they're doing it right now.
1 or 2 hands?
Questions, there was more than.
I would.
Everybody else? I'd like to thank Sarah Polka for putting this together.
You're talking to the mic.
She's,
You're talking to the mic.
oh, I thought I was. Okay, I'd like to thank Sarah Polka for putting this presentation together tonight. She's shown a great deal of initiative in order to do that. She's also put together a field training manual on her own time in the last month or so. Our department is over 45 years old with strong citizen support. I do believe that local policing is best. Officers get to know citizens personally. As was mentioned tonight, the sheriff's department has had some serious issues. The village recently modified their contract to allow one officer to cover both municipalities on a temporary basis, and I thank the village for doing that. The village of Waterford, all the trustees have expressed strong support for keeping local policing. And if we get rid of our local police department, we will never get it back.
Amen.
Let's give a 1-year trial for a modified department or whatever the board decides to do if they go that direction. The police contract expires on December 31st of 2025. I've talked to some officers who say that they are willing to work to improve it to be more friendly to our local taxpayers. If the smaller department doesn't work after a year's trial, we can always go back to the sheriff's department. They're not going away. And I guess that's all my comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Thank you. All right, we're gonna resume again.
Oh, may I say one more thing? I had hoped that tonight that this would be an agenda item that we could actually vote on. So I would like the town board at this time to decide when are we going to set a meeting to make a decision.
I don't think it should be months and months. I think there should be days or weeks before we have a meeting to make a final decision. If it's a special meeting or if it's a January town board meeting, we need to get off, we need to make a decision on this to move forward. It's time.
Okay, well, in 5 minutes, are we going to our next meeting?
What is the next meeting? The next meeting
I'd like to call this special meeting of the town of Waterford Board to order on Monday, December 23rd, 2024 at 7
I would like a motion, please, to take number 4 and move that up so we can have Attorney Ryan not here.
I'll make a motion, I'll move item number 4 up to the first item.
I'll second that motion.
First and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, we need a motion to go into closed session, please. Pursuant to Wisconsin State Statutes 19.851 C and F, to consider employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility to consider financial, medical, social, or personal histories or disciplinary data of specific persons, preliminary consider of specific personal problems, or the investigation of charges against specific persons, except where paragraph E applies, which if discussed in public would likely have a substantial adverse effect on the reputation of any person referred to in such histories or data or involved in such problems or investigations. Specifically, this closed session will relate to discussion of possible investigation of employee-related steps required to accomplish the same.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
First and second, any discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, I shut it down.
Any discussion you want to go on the line?
No, we got 3 drafts. Draft 2 is the one I believe we agreed to. Yeah, would you want to agree to that?
Yes.
We'd have a revenue versus expense of 22,914 cents after our changes.
Yes.
Okay, read this. So at the last board meeting, the budget motion to do the following: increase the special assessment to 150 for the fire department, eliminate a full-time patrol officer position, eliminate a full-time lieutenant position, correct the error in the DPW signs, cut Michigan fire levy budget by 175, and add part-time deputy clerk. Anyone?
So Michigan would be getting total of 358, if I remember right?
358, 650.
650 or 850.
Are they okay with that?
650.
I was just gonna ask, are you okay with that? Okay. And that would give us a plus of
22,900.
And then you'll need a line item where that's gonna go.
Well, this is
That should go into the
reserve.
reserve, yeah, because it came from the special assessment, correct?
So that gets rolled into the fire capital?
No, into the
No.
reserve.
They can't,
Can we use it on roads?
No, I don't know.
you can designate it to somewhere else within the budget, you can't put it in your reserve.
In their equipment fund then.
It can go in the Michigan equipment fund, yes.
Okay.
So that would have to be part of your motion.
Anything else?
Put it into someplace that would be more usable, and we need to take it out to put it down by somewhere else.
You can put it under, like, say, like the miscellaneous expenses, and then we can decide later on.
Let's do that. Let's put miscellaneous expenses.
That's a great idea, I like that.
And if we need something, we got a question.
Which is 59000.
590.
Anyone? Any more discussion?
Okay, we need a vote.
Yeah, then the vote will have to say that.
I would like to point out that if this plan would require a change to the town ordinance.
What was that?
This plan would require a change to the town ordinance if we're getting rid of, well, the ordinance required a sergeant, but the lieutenant took the place of the sergeant.
Just the budget, I'm not following you.
Well, the budget assumes the elimination of the lieutenant position. The ordinance predates the promotion of the lieutenant from sergeant, but the ordinance requires that there be a police.
I thought we eliminated that when we did the recodification.
We haven't approved the recodification yet, and it's still in the ordinance.
Yes, we're doing that in January.
Just making that point.
So then we would need to make a motion to eliminate the sergeant's position according to our ordinance.
Second that motion.
First and second. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
What exact was the motion?
I just asked a question, but I guess
Yeah.
we would eliminate the sergeant's position that is in our ordinance.
You're talking about changing the ordinance tonight?
That's not on the agenda.
No, it has to be noticed.
Yep, so we're gonna have to change the.
Let's try.
Yeah.
Well, it's pretty good budget to me if it's not broken down by sergeant lieutenant.
So that's correct. It's just the budget, but I was just pointing out that the budget has a plan in mind that is contrary to that.
That's fine. Well, let's just approve the budget right now. I mean, we have a motion to approve the budget as we just discussed.
But then we would have to reword though the position that we're.
We have to do that in the next meeting when it's on the agenda. The dollar amount's not gonna change. We're approving the budget. I'll make the motion to approve the budget as amended. Second.
Any more discussion? Roll call, all in favor?
Aye. Since we approved the budget, I'd like to make a motion as a discussion that we rebuild our Waterford Police Department, an officer in charge.
That wasn't on the agenda.
Well, we have a budget meeting, we just approved the police budget.
What's
Why
that?
can't we just approved the budget for this year? And we approve the budget's approved, what it's gonna be. Like the motion that we have, we rebuild with Waterford PD. That's my first motion.
I'll second that motion.
I don't think that's appropriately on the agenda either.
No. Was that, those policing issues aren't on the agenda.
True, but it's part of the budget.
That's
Yeah,
no more
we-
part of the budget than amending an
We're
ordinance.
talking budget and numbers, we don't have the policing issue on the agenda. And we just told people that we'd be looking at a referendum.
Well, we don't wanna wait for it.
Yeah, we
Can
can't
I
wait
ask you-
every 4 months to do this. It's ridiculous. Should be doing this in a matter of days.
Mike Dubus isn't here.
I'll make a motion that we set up a meeting at 5 o'clock on Monday, December 30th, to make a decision on the future of the police department in the town of Waterford.
I'll second that.
Not on the agenda.
What's that?
That's also not on the agenda. 2 supervisors per ordinance can set up a special meeting, but that is not on the agenda. It's not appropriately discussed.
And I feel like we can't. So you guys are making motions that the public doesn't even know we're gonna be made tonight. No, that's fair. And it's not on the agenda. That's not fair.
Setting up a future meeting. I don't see
Not a
anything
future
inappropriate
meeting
about
for
that.
a week from now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was gonna be on tonight's meeting. I thought it would be an agenda action item.
No, you saw the agenda. Right? Did you not see the agenda?
Not enough time to make it change.
I figured it would be part of talking about the budget, since we're setting it.
Right, we're talking about the budget. the numbers, but we did not put on the agenda any decisions about policing. We heard people here tonight saying that they wanted more information and they wanted to be able to contribute. I think that would be wrong.
Put it on a special meeting, we can get more discussion.
Yep.
And when is it gonna be done? If we don't do it, set a date to do it.
I think you need to put on a special meeting maybe after the holidays so more people can come. And more people can have time to get more information.
Set this meeting up the night before Christmas Eve.
If we need to move, because we might not have a lieutenant on January first,
So let's start rebuilding.
so then we need to have the meeting on the 30th.
Would you, people would try to do this and I don't have him draft the agenda for us.
Good, go ahead and set the meeting.
Takes two supervisors to do it.
6 p.m.
I think 5:30 was good for everybody.
Yeah, like 5:30.
On the 30th?
We will work with the attorney to do this draft agenda.
Okay, what's actually on the agenda, approval to pay claims for December and final allocation of ARPA funds.
First off, I'd like to make a motion to approve the claims that were printed.
Second motion.
Were these for December or November? though?
They're November's.
That's, yeah, it said December on there, but yes, for November.
It was December's town board.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yep.
so. Motion to pay the invoices from November.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear a second.
Oh, second.
Okay.
First and second, any discussion?
With regard to the community security solutions, I believe that they should provide us with a summary of what the work is that they concluded. And also fill in the gaps that are missing for the information that we did receive from them before they. Okay.
What was the dollar amount that we paid them?
We didn't pay them.
Well,
24,708.
Second motion, Bob?
Well, that's just a comment. There was a motion to pay and then it was seconded, but that's just my comment about.
Go ahead, that into my motion then.
I would be.
If you would. Tina, can I add that into my motion?
Absolutely.
Can you state it again, please?
Oh, it was motion to approve claims and then it was, and then to, or tell CSS that they have to provide a summary and fill in gaps for missing information.
But I'd like to know who's gonna do that.
Oh, yeah, one of the board members.
Okay.
Which board member?
Okay, first and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? ARPA funds, final allocation. We still have the extraction tools not paid yet, correct?
Bill,
I thought
Chief.
they were on here.
Yeah, they should be on.
Yeah, they're on
They should be
here,
the
but
new
this
list.
one's not.
Yep.
Yeah.
You guys just approved them.
Yeah, they were.
And I know that there was a note for sound equipment out of your video.
Yep, that was approved.
That was approved.
I think Tim. No, not paid yet.
The updated camera and storage.
What is the pricing on that updating of the camera?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. You did it. Yeah. It was like
$27.55.
Yep,
Okay,
sorry, I said it was an after copies.
I usually check it, but I checked it early today because I was,
Yeah, because I have.
anything else?
Okay, so we have, Heather is looking into upgrading the video surveillance, with Avatech, which we just spoke about, we have some issues. Final price on here. $27.55.
Now, is this indoors, outdoors, or everything?
It's increasing the storage everywhere, but then changing the one out in the squad room to be
A dome.
a dome
Okay.
and hopefully tamper proof.
For your limited warranty.
Motion to approve the tamper-proof camera and the upgraded storage for ARPA funds.
Second.
First and second. Okay. The balance of ARPA funds. Am I doing my math correct? 52.
I forgot to print out.
Doug, I know you had some ideas, I had some ideas. Anybody else?
We got a bid here for a grader for the town park of Bald Islands. American Power for 2,630. There were two other bids that were higher. This is the bid that Ken and the DPW guys had recommended to get. So I would move to approve the bid for the 7-foot dual cutting edge grader blade for the DPW for a cost of $2,630.
I'll second it.
First and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Did the DPW ever get a price on what it would cost to redo the driveway going to Station 2?
And I don't think they'd be able to get that in a shorter time. I don't think that's, have to have an actual contract.
I talked about possibly using some of the ARPA funds for extended warranties. Some of the equipment that we purchased.
I didn't have time to look into that, but if you want a motion to use our bar to prepay, I didn't have time to look into how much.
Yeah, no, I know
it
what I didn't
is,
either.
because I wasn't part of that. I just kind of helped out now, so I don't know what it actually was.
I can find that out and.
Well, I can find it out if you guys
just figures and.
So that would be
say
the
go
sound
ahead
system.
and designate it, but
So that would be on the sound system we're putting in?
both the
And
sound
the
system and the
cameras.
camera system. Like
Okay.
prepay a couple years.
Like a 3-year plan or something?
So approximately how much do we have left now? Do I allocate?
How much was the DPW thing? Because I don't have a copy.
26.
2,630.
Yeah.
2,600?
I know, I at first thought it was 26,000.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah, when you
started saying it, I thought
Yeah.
that was.
I thought too, what you said.
Yeah.
We were also looking at the vacation payout for the officers.
Yep,
for the
and,
clerk
and I
treasurer.
just spoke with Sarah and she said that we don't need to do that. They've already taken their vacation and they've already figured it out, so that's not an issue anymore.
What about for Heather and Gina?
We did.
You already.
We did that, yeah.
This is for
Was
full-time
ARPA
police
funds?
officers.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we did
That's
that.
not on the
Thank you.
agenda.
Well, it's here.
Vacation payout for full-time police officers is what's on the agenda.
Yeah, that's what I was asking about. Apparently that's already been done.
I don't know if Sherry has on the books, I have no idea.
So,
But we have about 36,000 probably, I'm just estimating with the,
extended warranty.
yeah, because I don't know what those are gonna be.
I hate to
So
say
maybe
it, have it on the 30th, but we could.
Yeah, we can put it on that agenda. We can
Because
come
that
up
we
with more
would
ideas.
have, we would have to, pick what the extended would cost, so we have a dollar amount.
It's really cutting it close, but yeah, it would work.
Because sometimes the extended are more than what you think.
So, okay.
You're killing me.
I wanna say
Celeste.
it's like a couple thousand a year, but
I'm thinking you're probably right.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to, when we talked video to start with, their extendeds back then, but that was a lot bigger project, it was a lot healthier price.
Well, we could reach out to the fire department, see if they need anything. All their stuff seems to be expensive. Sorry, Mark, but they do.
Okay. Motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Meeting adjourned.
All in favor?
All in favor, aye, meeting adjourned, 8:03.
Merry Christmas.
Everybody.
Are you gonna contact them?
Before 10 o'clock this time.